So there's a week to go now till the referendum, and I don't intend to make this a very long video. I'm gonna upload other videos before the referendum day. I want to touch a little bit on some of the rhetoric that has been coming out from the yes side consistently throughout this campaign, and that is the rhetoric regarding so-called treason. Now, I've touched before on some of the extreme elements of the yes side, and no doubt they'll turn around and say, oh, what about your bias, what about the extremists on the no side? Well, I've said before, if there are examples of pro-unionist people using vulgar tactics or using violence or intimidation or anything like that, I condemn that. It's not helpful for our cause, and I condemn it. But I have genuinely seen a lot more evidence of this sort of behaviour from the yes side. Obviously I'm on the no side, obviously I'm a unionist, but I've checked out both sides, I've checked out their Facebook pages and so on. I haven't seen any evidence whatsoever of, for example, any yes posters being vandalised or anything like that. It's all been the no side. Emotions are obviously running very high. I mean, this is 1 week to go until the destiny of this country. Now, what do I mean by this country? Yes, of course, Scotland. But I'm actually referring to the United Kingdom. And this is the starting point I want to make regarding this question about so-called treason. The United Kingdom is a country. It's recognised as a country by the UN. It always has been a country. It's not a continent. It's not a loose confederation of states. It is a country. And we do have something of a unique situation in that we are a country divided into 4 smaller countries. Technically 2 kingdoms, a country and a province. But the United Kingdom is a country. Let's just be very clear about that. And this is something that I really feel has been left out in the whole independence debate. There's been so much focus on Scotland, because that's where it's taking place, that people have maybe lost sight of the fact actually this will impact the whole country, the whole United Kingdom. So from that starting point I want to address these claims of treason. Now, they've been very consistent on the yes side. There's been high profile examples like the abuse that Jim Murphy has had to put up with. He's been regularly called a traitor, a quisling, etc. But it's not just well-known people who are subjected to this. A woman a few days ago who is going to vote no was accused of some... She said, I love Scotland. And then a yes fug came up to her and said, I'm disgusted that you're Scottish. This is the sort of rhetoric that they're coming out with. And they've even went so far, there's a former councillor went so far as to say, if you vote no, then you don't love your own children. I would say it's incredible how restrained the no side has actually been in dealing with the vitriol, the slurs, the slandering. I really haven't seen anything comparable on the unionist side. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, I just genuinely haven't seen it. But about the question of treason, that's a very, very loaded term. And I was initially going to reply and just call them traitors, and I'll explain that in a minute. But I don't want to sink to their level. I think it's a very, very loaded term, and I'm not sure that it's one that should be thrown around casually. So I'm personally reluctant to use it. I don't like the term. Although it's a legitimate adjective to describe someone who betrays their country in, for example, a time of war. But let's be clear, we're not in a state of war here. But if we really want to go down that line, if the nationalists insist on using that sort of rhetoric, I would say, well, where's the real treason here? The United Kingdom is a country. Now let's look at the current world situation. Russia is making its presence felt very obviously in Eastern Europe. ISIS is on the move in the Middle East. the fact of the matter is, the world is a very uncertain place right now. So this seems absolutely insane to break this country up. So when they rant and rave about fellow Scots being traitors, I could quite easily turn right around and say, you're the bloody traitors. You're traitors against the United Kingdom. Look at your passport. It says the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. You want to break this country up. So maybe, just maybe, you are the traitors. But I've tried to avoid that sort of language. God knows I've been tempted at times. But the reason I want to avoid it is because I don't believe that every yes voter is a bad person. I don't think every yes voter is an anti-English racist. I don't think every yes voter is a raving nationalist. In fact, I think some yes voters have genuinely done it with a heavy heart, because there was one woman who said she would have preferred to vote for Devo Max, but that wasn't a choice, which I think was a big mistake from the Unionist side. I think David Cameron should have negotiated for that to be one of the choices. I think a lot of the yes side are not enthusiastic ultra-nationalists. I think they just looked at the pros and cons of both arguments, and whilst I would disagree with them, they believed that the yes arguments were stronger, but they didn't necessarily want to see a breakup of the United Kingdom. I was shocked to see some people didn't even realise the implications that if they voted yes, it would mean the end of the United Kingdom, because they were actually saying, would Scotland still be in the UK if we vote yes? I don't want to sound patronising to anyone, but if you are in any doubt about this, if you're an undecided Scottish citizen and you don't know which way to go, I don't know how to make this more abundantly clear. If you vote yes, Scotland becomes an independent country. The United Kingdom is over. It breaks up. 307 years are gone. That's not scaremongering, it's simply a fact. So please think very carefully before you do this, if you're planning to vote yes. If you're thinking about voting no, but think, oh, there's a lot of things that need to improve, I am confident that changes can be made, and I'm confident the further devolution can be negotiated. So if you're planning to vote no, but you're not entirely happy about the current situation, things can change. Just a word about this. As David Cameron pointed out yesterday, this is not a general election. I've frequently heard nationalists say, oh, let's get rid of the Tories once and for all. Well, there's a few flaws with that argument. Firstly, next year they could get rid of them anyway. We'll have a general election, they'll have the democratic right to vote the Tories out, if Scotland's still in the Union. That's how democracy works. The party with the largest number of votes has the right to govern. That is democracy. Democracy has never been about getting exactly what you want. And another video I watched made a good point here. When Labour was in power for 13 years, I'm sure there were parts of the South East that were not particularly happy about that. When the Tories were in power for 18 years before, I'm sure there was many parts of the North East of England and Yorkshire and the Welsh Valleys were not happy about that. But this is how democracy works. So for Scottish nationalists, they seem to have this utopian idea that if they get independence, they're always going to have exactly the government they want. Now, I presume, I hope, if they get independence, Scotland will still be a democratic system. Therefore, presumably, it won't just be the Scottish Nationalist Party operating in Scotland, otherwise it'll be a one-party system, which is unthinkable. But in a healthy democracy, you need left, right and centre. So, no matter how much they hate the Tories, they're going to have some sort of right-wing representation in Scotland to make it democratically viable. I mean, I refuse to believe that all 5.2 million Scottish people are hardcore socialists. I'm sure there's conservatives in Scotland. And let me be clear, I'm not a conservative, but I just don't buy into these nationalist claims that I know party representation, there's only one Tory MP in the whole of Scotland, so clearly as a party it's very unpopular, but I refuse to believe that no one in Scotland ever votes Tory or has Tory leanings. In fact, I've seen many opinions in Scotland that are pretty conservative, and I think it's almost probably a case of people are frightened to vote Tory. I actually came across a Scottish conservative group on Facebook, and they must have some guts to actually go out and campaign, given the vitriol their party faces in Scotland. And this is not any sympathetic thing towards the Tories, believe me. There's many areas I dislike them on, but anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. The point I want to make, though, is that if Scottish nationalists think that it's going to be the SNP and no one else, then they're deluded. If they want their new country to be viable democratically on the world stage, they're going to have to allow dissenting voices. So in that sense, it really isn't going to be that different from the current situation. Now, they will argue there's too many departments that are still controlled by London. I personally believe some of those departments probably should switch to Scotland, such as welfare and some other issues. But in the end of the day, the United Kingdom is a country, so it is right that we have a single capital and some of those things remain in London. I do understand the arguments about devolution, and not just within Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, also within English regions. I can understand the arguments about that because people feel that London is out of touch and it's too far away and it's this elitist establishment and so on. It's very off-putting. But I'm not actually opposed to London being the capital of this country. I mean, look around the world. There's much, much bigger countries in the UK whereby the capital city is a very long way from parts of that country. I mean, there may well be people in, I don't know, Nevada who resent the capital being in Washington DC. There may be people in the south of China who feel distant from Beijing, although obviously the comparison there is a bit different. But the point is, I really don't have a problem with London being the capital. I mean, it's by far the biggest city. It's one of our oldest cities. It has many good reasons to be the capital of this country. So yes, further devolution, but not to the extent of independence. I mean, the problems that Scotland has will not be solved by independence. And I'm the first to admit that Scotland does have some serious social problems. But I'm also convinced that independence is not the way to deal with things in the 21st century. Separation between people, nationalism. Albert Einstein said nationalism is the measles of mankind, and that was a very poignant statement. Whatever way they gloss it over, no matter how many utopian arguments they come out with, these sort of things about, oh, Scotland can do it alone and all this sort of thing. Scotland probably could do it alone, but that isn't really the point. The point is, it still doesn't justify separating a 300-year-old country. If you look at it that way, the UK is one of the world's oldest countries. Literally, because if you think most states in the world today formed in the 20th century from the post-colonial era, now the UK is one of the world's oldest countries. That means if we split up in a week, we will be, as far as I know, the first Western country to divide itself since the American Civil War. I've been trying to think of another example. I suppose you could say Germany, but they reunified. Perhaps France during World War II with Vichy France. But this will be the first example of a Western country voluntarily breaking itself apart. I say voluntarily, but that's an illusion as well, because it's only Scottish people have the vote on this. And I've argued before, I think that's unfair. It's going to affect all of us. I mean, they say, oh, it's just Scotland, but actually it does affect the whole country. So surely people in England, Wales and Northern Ireland should be allowed to vote on this. Maybe it's because the nationalists know if they did, it would overwhelmingly be in favour of the Union. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, but I'm not calling anyone a traitor, but I'm sick and tired of the language that the nationalists are using, and I'm making the point that they're the ones who want to weaken this country. If we break up, we lose our place on the UN Security Council. Now, say what you want about that, but when it comes down to it, that means we have leverage on a world level that very few other countries have. The only other examples are Russia, the United States, China and France. Of all the countries in the world, we are one of them. The idea of losing that voluntarily just seems absurd. I mean, there must be people around the world looking at the UK and thinking, why do these people want to weaken themselves? Why do they want to break themselves up? Makes no sense. I've been getting messages from my friends all over the world saying, we hope the Union stays together. Okay, leave it there.